So welcome back. I still don't have a name for the channel, still working on this. We're going to be reviewing I May Destroy You episode 5. So this episode starts off with Arabella having sex with Biagio. It's a sweet scene. There's waves crashing in the background, the ocean. Just a very tender moment. Then she wakes up to reality. Guess who's in the bed next to her? Zain. I really don't know why she has continued to see this person. So she gets up, her alarm wakes her up. She's on this self-help kick that was recommended by her therapist. First thing she does is starts doing her yoga poses. Zain kind of makes fun of the fact that she's doing this. He's like, where did you get this from? She's like, on my phone. So she starts doing that. Then she finds a podcast. The podcast eerily is about guys who remove condoms while having sex with women, unbeknownst to the women. So she starts listening to this, and one of the women said the guys that do this are pros. They've learned what to say. They say things like, I thought you knew, you didn't feel it, or I thought it was uncomfortable, I thought you knew. So she starts listening to this, and this is exactly what Zain said in the earlier episode, episode 4. So she only has his shirt on and her underwear. I guess she's enraged. She leaves barefoot in his shirt and her underwear, goes into a store and buys new clothes. I don't know why she didn't get a new shirt. Buys some new clothes, new shoes, and from there she goes to her hairdresser. Hairdresser takes off the pink wig. Underneath is supposed to represent Arabella's real hair. But for those of us who know a thing or two about wigs, we know that that was just a wig that was braided. But that was supposed to represent her real hair. Hairdresser says, what do you want to do? Do you want the same conditioner, braid up? And she says, no, I want to do, something drastic. So shave her head. Or her head is shaved in real life, but this is supposed to represent where she shaves her head. So she shaves her head, and we see her meeting the detectives with Terry and Kwame. So when she meets the detectives, Susie Henney, who is the publisher, is having a meeting with her people and is wondering where she is. So she's meeting with the detectives. What I can say about what they have done thus far, is they have been very compassionate. The black detective, Officer Funmi, talks to Arabella with such compassion. She explains everything in such detail. We have found DNA. We have made an arrest. The DNA is not enough to test it against people in the database, but we can use this DNA to do a direct match if we have a suspect, but we do have to rule out consensual sexual partners, basically Biagio. So Arabella's like, ooh, I have to tell. She hasn't told Biagio. In this episode, Terry really showed herself a lot. I got my good eye on her. So Terry, the detective's like, you haven't told him? Why? Terry blurts out, because he's an Italian drug lord. Arabella looks at her like, I'm gonna kill you. So Terry's like, oh, it's just a joke. Arabella said, oh, she's joking. So this whole time this is going on, notice Kwame is paying attention. He's not as lighthearted. He's kind of listening. And so they tell her that, so she has to tell Biagio. As they're leaving, Arabella's like, a lot of people don't know what constitutes rape. She said, I didn't even know before this you could get raped in your mouth. So, which is oral sodomy, I believe. And so Kwame is listening, and then Arabella said, I got a question. Is taking off a condom without the woman knowing rape? And the white detective, who was Detective Beth, says, yes, that is. Just people don't know about it, so they don't know to report it. So that kind of is triggering Kwame to think about his experience. They leave, and we can see that Kwame is Googling, what happened to him is that sexual assault. At this point, he's unsure, he's embarrassed, he still hasn't discussed it. Terry says, oh, you're looking up, trying to find someone, because, he finds people on the app, and he's like, huh, but, he's not the same. If Terry would just step out of herself for just a little bit and pay attention to the environment, she might be a better friend. She's stuck in her head. She's in her own bubble. So I don't think she's a bad person, though. she's not a bad person. She's not one-dimensional. She's just not a all-around bad friend. I've seen moments where she's been there for Arabella, but a lot of this episode showed that a lot of everything is about Terry. So Kwame is Googling, because and I think that experience Arabella just had with the detectives is encouraging him to come forward. Maybe he would have someone compassionate who will talk to him and kind of get the facts too. So I think that has encouraged Kwame. So let's move on. So Arabella finally goes to the meeting. She meets Susan Henney, who is black. Arabella is so excited that she's a black woman. She's like, "You're black." And so they sit down. Susie Henney has an assistant who's sitting on the side of her, and then there's Julian and the other white lady, I forgot her name. So they're talking. Zain walks in. He was like, "Oh," because he hasn't seen Arabella since she left this morning. So Zain walks in, and Arabella, she was like, "I was late because I was at the police station." So Susie Henney says, "Why?" And she says, "I was raped. They're working on it. They're collecting DNA. They know who it is. That they've collected DNA from my house," which we know that they didn't collect DNA from her house. And so she says, "My rapist," and I know the name of my rapist. And she says, "Zain Sareem." And Zain, he's uncomfortable even up to that point because he knows he's done something wrong. And she says, "And they know the name of my rapist, Zain Sareem." And then Zain is uncomfortable. She said, "He's been so helpful to me." And Zain's probably like, "He's been so helpful to me." So she did a couple of Jedi mind tricks during this whole episode on him. So they start talking. They say they want her to talk at the Writers' Summit, and she says, "Well, can a friend speak for me?" And Susie Henney says, "I guess, is she white?" And Arabella says, "No." And she's like, "Perfect. So maybe they just need a token black person for this publishing group, and that's considered diversity, I guess." And so we see that play out. Let me look through my notes here, people. So Arabella is working out with Terry, and of course Terry is like, how big is the audience? It's all about her being able to talk. At this point, I'm like, do you even care that your friend has been assaulted? Do you not even care? It's all about her, So then we cut to Zain and Arabella painting. So Arabella's on one side, Zain is on the other side. This has been bothering him. He wants to talk to Arabella. He sits down. He's like, "Why didn't you tell me about this?" And she said, "Tell you about what? I didn't finish my book." And he says, "No, about the he can't even bring himself to say the word rape. But you're a rapist, sir." And she says, "Well, I thought it would make you uncomfortable. It would mess things up between us if you knew you were a rapist." And he was like, "Wait, what?" She said, "I thought if you knew there was a rapist." Another Jedi mind trick. So then we cut to Kwame going to the police station, and this was not a good scene at all. It's like they gave him the most inexperienced, most non-compassionate detective ever. Kwame sits down and he starts explaining, "I met him on an app." And the detective's like, or police officer is like, "What's his name?" Kwame says, "I don't have a name. No one uses his name, but I do have his address." And he's like, "You don't have a name? You didn't ask him for a name?" And Kwame says, "No, but I have his, his address," which is very important. Not everyone has. If you're randomly attacked, you don't have a name of the assailant. You just would have a description. So I don't understand why that was a sticking point. I'm sorry, I'm looking. There was a car that just pulled up. I don't understand why that would be a sticking point. We need a name, because you don't always have a name. There are unnamed people that attack people every day, and you have to give a description, and then the detectives do their work. So Kwame said, "I don't have a name, but and he said, "What's his name on the app?" And you could tell Kwame was like, "Oh gosh, I have to say this." And I think, what was his name? Horny Man 808 or something like that. And the detective's like, "Horny Man 808. Once again, Kwame has an address. Let's start from there. Let's start from the series of events. Let's ask him. Then he asked him something like, "Was there penetration?" And Kwame was like, I'm not sure. I mean, my pants were down. And the man says, well, Kwame says, I guess I can check. And the man was like, how would you do that? He said, stick my finger there. The guy's like, stick your finger in your anus. He was like, I think this is for special victims unit or something like that. So he leaves, come back and tell Kwame, you know, there's easier ways to report this. You could have used a kiosk. And at this point, Kwame's just ready to go. And he leaves, the police officer leaves. Another detective walks in the room. You okay? Kwame says, yeah. Walks out before Kwame can even answer. So in this instance, the care and compassion that was shown to Arabella from the female detectives the difference in the treatment for Kwame, I don't know if they could have given him someone more compassionate. I don't know if they could have given him someone more experienced. I don't know if the men reporting rape, I don't know if it's not taken as serious. I don't know if it's not seen as traumatic as a woman. I'm not sure, because of course I'm not a man. So I wouldn't know, but it is horrible. To the point where the victim decides to leave. Like, he doesn't even want to finish this process. He wants to leave. And I know that watching Arabella's experience was the encouragement he needed to come forward, and maybe thinking he was going to get the same experience. Well, and he didn't. So now we cut to Arabella going to the Writers' Summit with Terry. She's drinking, a glass of champagne, and she's like, this is the crowd I've been waiting for. She's talking all of this stuff, and then here comes the stage fright. And I'm like, well, how are you going to be an actress if you have all this stage fright? How are you going to, and we saw her first, when she tried out for the audition for the role in the first season, first episode 1, how that went. She's uncomfortable in her skin. She's nervous. So I'm not understanding this career choice. I'm waiting on some acting from Terry. So she's gonna do it. We see Zain come with his mother, and you can tell his mom is proud of him. She got herself a good boy. So Arabella talks to Sean, Susie Henny's assistant, and Sean alludes to the fact that Zain has done this to her and other women that she knows. So she doesn't say it outright, but she alludes to that. So Arabella's like, So time for Terry to speak. Of course, she backs out. She can't do it. So I do not think that Arabella had this plan. I do not think she went to this summit with the intention of getting on stage and talking about Zain. But because Terry backed out, she had the stage. When she got up there, there was a pause. So I really do not think this was her intention. She gets up there and she says, Zain Sarim is a rapist. He pulled my condom out. He pulled the condom off while we were having sex without me knowing. He has done this to multiple women. He is not rapey, as they would say in Australia, or rape adjacent, as they would say in America. He is a rapist under UK law. So Zain starts walking out. People have their phones. Terry has her phone. She's like, you're gonna feel this. She records him. Afterwards, Arabella, Terry, and Sean are sitting around at a bar, and Arabella has just gone viral. Everyone is talking about this, and I think because of this, more women are going to come forward with their stories. So everyone's talking about this. Terry, of course, is talking about herself. I'm a gift. They look at me. Of course, it's about Terry. It's not about what this heroic thing that her friend just did. So Sean is like, someone's even written an article already. And so they're just looking at that. So Terry calls Kwame, or Kwame looks on his phone. He sees all of this, and he's just in the room by himself. There's nothing worse than silent pain. He's in the room by himself. He has not told his friends. Arabella has just done something so courageous, heroic regarding sexual assault that just happened to him, and he's still hiding in that shame. And so he just looks at his phone, puts it down. Then we see Arabella in the bed. And she still hasn't told Biagio the whole story. She attempted to tell him a little bit. So he calls her. Apparently the police have gotten a hold of him. And he's like, you're going to mess up my life. Now I have to go to the police station. He's like, you should watch your drinks. If you had been watching your drink, you wouldn't have gotten raped. So she hangs up the phone, bursts in tears, crying, covers her face. And then she remembers that she is now beloved on the internet. She takes a couple of pictures, a couple of selfies posted, and then she starts getting these likes on there, and then that's how the episode ends. And I would caution anyone, social media is just a temporary fix. It's not going to heal you. And also, becoming the face of a revolution is not an easy job. It's not an easy job. So we're going to see what happens in episode 6. I hope you enjoyed this review. Make sure you like, subscribe, comment. I like comments. I want to hear what I missed, what I didn't see. This show is multifaceted. There are things that I watch it 2 or 3 times, subtitles, just to catch things that I missed. So if I missed anything, please bring it to my attention. If there's something that you saw that I didn't see, bring it to my attention. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.